You're watching BionicDance. Don't run on automatic, instead, please think.
Who does determine what is right and what is wrong? There are many opinions floating around about what is right and what is wrong. With all the moral confusion in our society, it's difficult to figure out what people should actually believe.
Maybe we're not supposed to believe anything. Perhaps the best we can do is improvise. The real question is, what are our goals with regard to being moral or being immoral? Let's do this. Greetings, fellow space travelers. BionicDance here. Morality and its source are a constant battle between theists, atheists, and other theists. That there even can be such disagreement ought to tell us a bit about the reliability of such claims. But, of course, it doesn't. At least, not for some of us.
No matter where you go, questions like these arise. Does everyone have the right to determine what is right and wrong? Is everything relative to the individual? Without question, relativism is one of the foremost isms of our time. It claims that there are no absolutes and that anyone who thinks there are absolutes is absolutely wrong.
And here comes the word salad, an incorrect word salad. Relativism need not encompass the entire universe. One can find certain aspects of existence to be relative while acknowledging other absolutes. For example, to claim that there is a best flavor of ice cream is clearly a relative measure, a subjective opinion. There's simply no universal way to determine even the criteria to quantify such a thing. The best one can do is take a poll and find a majority. On the other hand, it is possible to have an absolute top speed, the speed of light. At least, we're pretty convinced of that. I'd love to have access to some sort of hyperwarp drive to go exploring space. Point being, if one decides that morality is relative, that does not preclude saying that someone else is absolutely wrong about morality being absolute, and trying to claim so is merely a semantics game.
Number one, it is self-defeating to claim that one is absolutely certain that there are no absolutes. The claim that one should never use the word never, just use the word never in that claim. Likewise, the claim that one should always avoid using the word always, just use the word always.
Like I said, a semantics game. The concepts are ignored in favor of how they are expressed. And again, the assumption is that relativism must be a worldview, rather than being subject-specific.
Number two, the assertion that the world is getting worse or better is not possible unless one has a moral absolute to know what is best. Even simple judgments about how good or evil the world is depends on some objective standard outside ourselves by which such judgments can be made.
Unless, of course, whether the world is better or worse is an opinion. Lots of things can be better or worse to certain people. Perhaps one doesn't like the current trend in music and thinks it's getting worse while someone else totally digs it. Perhaps one thinks their cooking skills are getting better while someone else thinks they're fooling themselves. And someone might have an opinion about behavior within their culture. They don't need an absolute for it. They just need to care how it affects people. Morality is relative and needs no absolutes against which comparisons are made.
We could not say that more poverty, abuse, exploitation, slavery, and abortion would make the world worse, or that more peace, harmony, and love would make it better.
Better or not, for whom? Goodness knows there are people who benefited quite a bit from slavery and loved every second of it. And there were people who objected to it quite a bit. If you think one side was absolutely right, show me how. I don't like that lack of absolutes any more than you do, but that doesn't make it not the case. As for love making things worse, do I need to tell you about my alcoholic crack addict ex with the brain tumor who, nevertheless, I loved a great deal? My life was not made better by that relationship, at least not according to me anyway. Love isn't always a positive force for good. Dude Boy here derides relativists for saying never, but he is, in essence, saying always, and it's clear that isn't so.
Number three, moral comparisons, which we make all the time, depend on moral absolutes. To even think or pose the question, what is the best, would have no meaning. How could we say that Jesus Christ is better than Osama bin Laden unless we have some objective standard by which to know which is better?
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. We decide which is better and which is worse by whether it helps or hurts. Did you like it? There's a good chance you'll say it was good. Did it hurt? Probably going to call it immoral. But that's too self-centered to be morality unto itself. which is where empathy comes in. Do we think it would make another person hurt? But even that is at least kind of self-centered, because we know that if we can morally cause pain to someone else, nothing stops them from doing the same to us. So we have a mutual but unspoken agreement to not cause each other pain or inconvenience in order to protect ourselves from assault or theft or anything else we'd find unacceptable. But not everybody agrees on what is or is not permissible, what will or will not hurt, or whether they must follow what we've come to know as the golden rule, causing pain to others. Again, morality is relative. Each person carries these shoulds and should nots in their own head. It's fortunate that there is a lot of overlap from person to person, but it should be clear that absolutes do not exist.
Number 4, moral disputes imply universal moral laws. We can't say something is right and something else is wrong unless there is a standard by which to measure them.
And again, I cite the music is better or worse analogy. It's all opinion-based. That's where the disagreement comes from. One person likes a behavior and another person doesn't. They disagree because there aren't any absolutes. The only true absolute is that Star Wars is better than Star Trek. That's right. You heard me. May the Force be with you.
Number 5, we didn't invent moral laws any more than we invented mathematical or physical laws. Newton did not invent gravity, he merely discovered it. No one invented the laws of logic, they are just part of the furniture of the universe. Likewise, moral laws were not invented, they were discovered.
Who says morals are laws? The only place I found that claim, religion, which brings us to the ultimate question of proving religion true before we can consider accepting morality as law. And even then, morals are just a God's opinion on behavior being imposed upon us. It's still not an absolute. And opinions are not laws in the sense that gravity is. To say that they are is to engage in prevarication for one's own benefit rather than the truth. The single, solitary way for morality to be an absolute is for us to have no free will and to have exactly the same programming in our heads that dictates our behavior, programming not imposed by a thinking being with opinions, preferences, or free will of its own. Otherwise, morality is, as I said, unique to each individual with significant cultural overlap among most of the population.
Number 6, universal moral guilt shows there are universal moral laws. Why do we make excuses for our faults unless we know we are wrong?
What on earth makes you think that we all say the same things are faults? Or that we think they're faults for everybody? Goodness knows there are people who say that something is wrong for everybody but themselves, or for people of a certain status. I dare you to show how fault-finding is an absolute.
Number 7, following moral laws cannot be herd instinct since we sometimes choose duty over instinct, as when a person chooses to rush into a burning building to save a child. The ultimate demonstration of this is when a person sacrifices his or her own life to save another.
And does everybody do these things? Nope. Some people are just too shit scared or don't care. One might even say that describes most people. Otherwise, why would we put medals on people for heroism? They only did what everybody else knows they should do after all. Who cares? Or maybe it's that those people are exceptions. Maybe they're the ones who broke free of herd mentality. Or maybe others just can't empathize because they don't have kids and don't feel why they should run into that burning building. So maybe it's not herd mentality, but it sure isn't an absolute.
Number 8, we all find some things evil. For example, genocide, child abuse, and slavery are all universally frowned upon.
Really? You'd think the people committing those acts would be terribly ashamed of themselves then. But, and not to go all Godwin's law on you, but I bet Hitler thought he was doing the world a favor, that Jewish genocide was just the best thing ever. And we've been seeing a resurgence of neo-Nazis lately. You want to ask their opinion on genocide? Some people have to think it's great, or else how would the rest of us even have something to object to? And if some people think it's great and feel no shame, then obviously it's not universally immoral, no matter how strong our objection to it may be.
Number 9, our real moral principles are not discovered by our actions, but by our reactions. We are imperfect human beings, so we don't always do the things that we know we ought to do. There are many things we don't want others to do to us, such as lying, cheating, abusing, and killing. So moral laws are based on what we want others to do to us.
Yeah, that's what I said at the beginning of this video, but newsflash, not everybody wants the same things. So if morality is based on what we do or don't want, then morality is, by definition, relative.
And finally, number 10, the same basic moral codes are found in all major cultures.
And in some cultures, they're not. In some cultures, they're different. Does that sound like absolute or universal to anybody else? Sorry, but you have all of your proving still ahead of you. If the argument is that some cultures are just getting their absolutes wrong for whatever reason, and that they're just not following the real moral code, you're gonna have to prove that. And if your so-called real moral code comes from religion, you've still got your task ahead of you to prove not merely that religion is true and God is real, but that your religion is the true one. Good luck with that.
So, in the end, who determines what is right and what is wrong? God does. You see, God is the moral lawgiver. He's the one who determines the moral laws. They're not only written in the Word of God, as you look at Exodus chapter 20, but they're also written on our hearts, Romans 2, 12 through 15. Therefore, we are all obligated to obey such moral laws.
And I've already explained the myriad ways that doesn't work so well. Prove God, free will, opinion-based morality, etc., etc. It's already been said.
So when it comes to aborting an unborn baby,
well, that took a sudden hard turn to the right. We will not be discussing birth control today, folks. I could do a whole other video on that shit. Some other time, maybe. And until then, fellow space travelers, this is BionicDance saying don't run on automatic. Instead, please think.
Even YouTubers need Ferraris. Please donate on Patreon.
Droids don't pull people's arms out of their sockets when their videos aren't rated. Bionic dances are known to do that.